Thank you, gentlelady. I want to thank our witnesses. Chairman Turner had to step out briefly, but after nearly 2 hours of testimony and 40 pages of written testimony under the annual threat assessment, I've heard very little about the open southern border policies. This is a man-made problem coming out of the White House, which poses one of the most, if not the most significant threat to our nation's security right now. I don't make that statement glibly. I don't make the following statement, which is that I feel we are more vulnerable today than we were on September 10th of 2001 as a result of not just China, not just Russia, not just the debacle in Afghanistan and Iran and its proxies in the Middle East and transnational criminal organizations, but because of our open borders. And this is a continuation of a statement that I made last year, which, as the primary advisors to the President and the White House and to the DOD for all things intelligence, your failures to convey and impart on this President the vulnerabilities of this open border policies is continuing to put us at risk. Just in the last year, we saw 2.45 million crossings across our southern border. In December alone, which was our last data set, we saw 10,000 crossings, illegal crossings across our border. And we had Lincoln Riley killed by an illegal immigrant back on February 22nd. And it's not until page 35 of 40, after climate change, that the border is even alluded to. And I use the word alluded very loosely because it's alluded to under the terms of migration, and Director Haynes, you note the pressures of external political instability in countries in Central and South America as a reason for this mass migration problem that we're seeing. But the reality is that we have an open southern border as a result of policies from the White House. This president ran on these policies and is now, in my opinion, a greater threat than the sum of all of the other threats that we've discussed here today, to include Russia, to include China, Iran and its proxies, and all terrorist organizations, because they are aware of our open southern border. They are taking advantage of our open southern border. I want to talk about data. Ranking Member Hines cited data from the third years of the last administration and this administration. But here is data from the actual numbers from Customs and Border Protection figures that in 2017 there were 2 encounters of terrorists on the terrorist screening data set, or the known terrorist watch list, if you will. In 2018 there were 6 encounters. In 2019 there were 3. In 2020 there were a mere 6. And after that, it goes parabolic. We are now talking about hundreds of people coming across the border in the last 3 years, in each of the last 3 years that are on the terror known watch list. This doesn't include the people that we have not caught. So this is the existential threat, and this is the biggest threat. So I'm disappointed yet again that in this hearing, an annual threat assessment, that we are not talking about the the open border policies. Mr. Hines mentioned earlier a Lincoln quote, which has evolved over the last couple of centuries, but I'll summarize it as, if we falter and lose our freedoms as a nation, it is because we destroyed them ourselves from within. This is a policy that is the direct result of a president who sits in the White House, who has intentionally opened our southern border, has created a migration challenge, as he puts it, that is resulting in 75,000 Americans dying of fentanyl poisonings each year, dozens of people being murdered at the hands of illegals, and now a cumulative 7 million people who are in our country who are unaccounted for, who have court dates in some cases in the 2032 time frame. We have no idea where they're living. They're victims of human smuggling. They're victims of effectively slavery within our own borders, working off their debt to the cartels. And so my question to you is, why have you failed to impart on this president the level of threat from a national security perspective that his policies are creating? And is this not being briefed? If it's being briefed, what is the reaction that you're getting from either the Secretary of Defense, Austin, Secretary of Homeland Defense, Mayorkas, or the President of the United States? I guess, Director Haynes, we could start with you, and if anyone else has any interest in addressing this. Why has the President not recognized that the southern border policies that he has created, a very man-made problem, are themselves the biggest threat to our nation's security?
Thank you, Representative Garcia. I think the question, as I understand it for me, is are we providing to the policy community information about what's happening at the border? And I think, you know, as you indicate, we have our assessment in the annual threat assessment, the challenges and why it is that we're seeing so many folks at the border, and we do provide that information on a regular basis.
So that actually wasn't my question. My question is why has the president, in your opinion, not taken this on board? The fact that in 2022 there were 98 encounters with known terrorists on the terror watch list. In 2023, 172. These numbers are parabolic. They are exponential in nature. Why is this administration not listening to you? Do you lack the ability to communicate this clearly through the chain of command? Is there someone preventing you from clearly conveying this data set to the president? Or is there, frankly, just a president and his cabinet who don't give a damn about the southern border and the policies and the repercussions thereof?
I mean, in my experience, the policy community cares deeply about the national security of this country, and I think they are doing what they think is best. I would not hesitate, you know, or I would hesitate to suggest that I can provide an opinion about what the president thinks on these issues or why he's come to the conclusions he has.
I think the results speak for themselves, and I have no doubt that the agents in the field, the Border Patrol agents, the CIA, FBI agents in the field, care deeply about our nation's security. They are just as scared as we are, and that's what scares me, frankly, when you have a commander-in-chief who doesn't change his behavior patterns or his policies as a result of this invasion on our southern border and puts it last above all things is very concerning as an American citizen. I thank you for your time and your testimony and look forward to deeper dives on the classified side. I now recognize Ms. Houlihan for 5 minutes.